Now, we began the programme by discussing the removal of a legal barrier to having more than one child in China. Let's focus now on new legal barriers that have gone up for people who want to have a child through surrogacy. This service, in which you pay a woman with a healthy womb to carry the baby for you, is used by couples who can't carry a child to term. So-called commercial surrogacy is legal in certain parts of the United States, but it's illegal to pay for it in many other developed countries. So for years now, would-be parents have turned to surrogates in Thailand, India and the United States, for example. Earlier this year, though, Thailand passed a law banning foreigners from paying surrogate mothers, following claims that an Australian couple had abandoned a newborn baby because he had Down syndrome. And this week, the Indian government has signalled that it too plans to ban commercial surrogacy for foreigners. Well, I've been talking about this to Helen Prosser, who's the director of the fertility law firm Natalie Gamble Associates. First, just how big is India's surrogacy industry?
Well, it's enormous, and I think what we've seen in some of the press is that India is a billion-dollar business. There is a well-trodden path, not just to India, but around the world for UK intended parents to find surrogate mothers in India and in other destinations around the world.
And how well regulated is the industry?
Every country has its own regulation. There are no specific regulations in India. The way it works is for intended parents is they would go and engage with a clinic and an agency who would manage the whole process for them. And then from there would be a legal process that the intended parents need to do once they come back to the UK with their baby in applying for a parental order, which would extinguish the surrogate mother's legal responsibility here in the UK and give the intended parents full legal responsibility in the UK.
If the Indian government does follow through, do what Thailand has done and bans foreigners from paying fees to a surrogate mother, what would happen to the industry there, do you think? Would it disappear?
Well, no, I mean, the issue is that surrogacy is growing globally. There is no question about that. It's firmly on the map, and where intended parents are not able to find surrogates in their home countries, then they are going to go abroad. The drive to have children is not going to diminish. It is not going to change. And so where there are not avenues within the home country or in India, it will be driven underground. And what we really need to be seeing is proper regulation to enable responsible surrogacy in home countries.
And if it is driven underground, what are the dangers?
Intended parents will go to destinations where, firstly, the surrogates are not well supported, that the babies are being born in destinations where they may not have status, and there will be all sorts of confusing and vulnerable situations that intended parents and families will get themselves into.
Now, desperate people, as you say, will go to any ends
Absolutely.
To have children, but there are financial constraints. So, for example, even though it remains legal in parts of the United States to pay a surrogate mother, that's not going to be an option for everyone, presumably on a financial basis.
No, and this is the thing with a destination like India, is it's vastly cheaper, less expensive than if somebody going to the US. The US is an expensive destination, but that's because there are the organizations and the structures in place to give support, legal support as well as psychological support to surrogates. Intended parents are well supported. If they don't have the finances to go there, then it leaves people in a very vulnerable situation.
But briefly, you must accept that there are some people who find the idea of paying a surrogate mother just morally
Absolutely.
a little bit repugnant.
Yes, and I think you've got to balance out. What we see in the US is typically a surrogate gets paid $30,000, $35,000. Here in the UK, where we have an altruistic framework where surrogates are paid their expenses, we typically see £10,000 to £15,000, which is not that different.
Helen Prosser there, director of the fertility law firm Natalie Gamble Associates. She also runs a charity which helps to match up would-be parents with surrogates. You're listening to NewsHour from the BBC.